distinguished guests and colleagues, it's always a pleasure to return to the Summer Institute and see familiar faces and to get to know new participants. I've been asked to give a brief overview of the program, of what we'll be doing over the next couple of days. I would like to thank all of you for coming, and of course our sponsors, and you've already heard them named several times, and I won't take up a lot of time doing that. As we've heard in the excellent keynote address of Ambassador Ong, trafficking and modern-day slavery are complex global problems, regional problems, national problems. And as you can imagine, it is difficult to do justice to this topic in a 2.5-day meeting. And I want to congratulate the staff of the Human Rights Resource Center and the HANDA Centre in planning a program that I think will help us to identify some of the key issues that are particularly important now in considering the many dimensions of human trafficking as it presents itself as one of the greatest human rights challenges that we face today, both globally and in the ASEAN region. So in the first substantive session this morning, which is entitled Understanding the Human Rights Dimension to Slavery and Trafficking, we're going to be focusing on framing the problem of trafficking not only as a transnational crime, but also from the perspective of human rights, and also looking at one of the important dimensions of trafficking, which has to do with labor exploitation in ASEAN. And over the next couple of days, we're going to be looking at a number of perspectives on the economic dimensions of trafficking. And in this session, our speakers will be exploring the economic costs of trafficking, who benefits from trafficking, who loses in trafficking, the impact of governments, and what are the costs in not taking action on trafficking. We'll also be looking at the dimensions of trafficking in the labor markets in Asia. One of our speakers, Anne Gallagher, a renowned expert on trafficking because of a family emergency, will be participating, as I understand, both through having Centre PowerPoint and also through video link, as unfortunately, due to this emergency, she will not be able to be with us over the next days. After lunch today, we're going to be digging deeper into some of the economic dimensions of trafficking in two sessions that are entitled Labor Insights. And we're going to be looking in these sessions as to the particular issues and initiatives that are being undertaken in different sectors of the economy, in different industries, to prevent trafficking in supply chains. And as you all know, this is, of course, a very important issue that's garnered a lot of global attention in recent years and presents a number of challenges and difficulties. And we'll be looking at studies and initiatives that relate to specific industries. That will conclude the work for today, and tomorrow we'll be turning to a different dimension, which are the responses of national governments, responses at the regional level to ensure the safety of individuals, and to return to the issue of humanity that was raised by Ambassador Ong, to ensure the safety of those who find themselves vulnerable in situations of migration and open to exploitation. And we'll be looking at different kinds of labor practices and different kinds of practices in identifying and addressing the needs of trafficked persons in ASEAN. That will be the opening session tomorrow morning. We'll be looking specifically at some of the current initiatives that are underway by national human rights institutions and by ASEAN and ASEAN bodies regarding identifying and addressing human trafficking and ensuring better conditions for migrants. And again, we'll have a number of distinguished speakers who will be addressing specific problems in those areas. After that morning plenary session, we're going to go into 2 breakout sessions, and the breakout sessions will examine different dimensions of the kinds of issues that were raised in the plenary. So there will be 2 streams for discussion. The first will be legal protections against preventing slavery and human trafficking, not only from ASEAN, but comparatively in different regions of the world, and looking at what are the lessons learned in initiatives in other regions that can be applied to ASEAN. The second stream is entitled Knowing and Showing, and that will be looking at different kinds of tools and resources that companies can utilize to try to ensure that they are addressing issues of slavery and trafficking in their business practices, their supply chain, etc. We'll then break for lunch, and we'll come back for another plenary session in the afternoon. And we heard about the 3 Ps and the 5 Is from Ambassador Ong. And in that session, we're going to be looking at the 1D, which is data. And the issue of data is, I think, one of the most challenging issues that we face. The HANDA Centre, with the collaboration of Human Rights Resource Center, our partner, has just completed a study on data collection in ASEAN. And we'll be hearing something about that. So that plenary discussion will be on normative, methodological, and technical challenges to data collection on human trafficking in ASEAN member states. Data collection may seem like a very dry sort of issue, looking at quantitative dimensions, but good data is the basis of good policies. Good data is the basis of good analyses. And one of the problems in looking at the different methodologies and so forth employed by various groups in collecting and presenting data and numbers on trafficking in the region is that in many ways we know much less than we should. And those are some of the challenges that need to be addressed to improve data collection that can lead to better analyses and better policies. We'll then move into another plenary session entitled Working with Survivors. This is, of course, another dimension that was highlighted by Ambassador Ong, and that is once we identify and once we identify those who are subjected to trafficking, once we manage to interrupt or break up trafficking networks, or once we manage to rescue people from trafficking, what happens to them after that? And that is another area that definitely deserves greater attention in some context to ensure that these individuals who have been rescued or freed from slavery or trafficking context will be able to develop their humanity and their human potential. And we'll be looking at some specific cases of care for migrants by those who are practicing in this area. To conclude the day, we'll have breakout sessions with group discussions. The first stream will focus on the activities of the ACWC and how the Commission sees its role in responding to victims' needs and preventing the cycle or interrupting the cycle of trafficking. The second stream will focus on the activities of the ITER and the ITER's response to trafficking in persons. Both bodies, of course, play an important role in ASEAN. And we'll be looking specifically also at the progress that's being made through the activities of those two groups plus the ACMW in combating trafficking and slavery in the region, as well as next steps. That will conclude the second day of our meeting. And then on the third day, where we will only have a morning substantive session, the plenary is entitled ASEAN as an Anti-Trafficking Actor, Supporting the ITER and the ACWC in Fulfilling the Trafficking Convention and the ASEAN Action Plan. We're, of course, entering a new era with a convention, with an action plan, and so forth. And the focus of the discussion will be the role of the ITER and the ACWC, bearing in mind our anticipated convention and action plan, and how actors in the region, from civil society, from governments, from universities, and so forth, can assist the ASEAN human rights bodies who are engaged in trafficking in fulfilling their role. We will then conclude the morning session with a plenary discussion and a review of the proceedings, which will be led by Ambassador Ong, how ASEAN actors can work together to prevent trafficking in persons in the supply chains and beyond. And this goes to another one of the points that we heard in the keynote, which is the necessity for better coordination, collaboration, and so forth among the full range of interested parties at the regional level, at the national level, at the local level, from civil society, from academia, from government, and so forth, because as we heard from Ambassador Ong, without a coordinated response that effectively mobilizes the resources of all those who want to protect those who are victims and survivors of trafficking and slavery, we will not be able to make significant progress against this highly organized criminal activity. So that will conclude the substantive part of the session for the morning and of the Summer Institute. And then after lunch that day, there will be an optional field trip, and everyone is asked to please let our staff know whether or not you would like to be included in the field trip. That will conclude the part of the Summer Institute, the main part of the Summer Institute that brings us here together. We will have a fourth day at the Udayana University, our host, to engage with students and academics at the Udayana. So that's an overview of our activities. I look forward to listening to the many experts that are here, both as speakers and, of course, all of those who are the participants from the ITER, from the ACWC, ACMW, and so forth, also bring their expertise, and I'm looking forward to learning from all of you in the next 2.5 days. Thank you.